Hi, my name is Rose, and today I'm going to be talking about gender identity. What is gender identity, you may ask? Well, gender identity is somebody who identifies as non-binary, genderqueer, pangender, transgender, etc. I decided to talk about this due to the fact that we're lacking in this world on just speaking about it overall, or just recognizing the fact that gender identity does exist. That there's literal people, humans out there that identify as non-binary, like I said, as pangender, as transgender, as so many genders out there. And you know, in this world we're not really recognizing that. So I decided to sit down with a bunch of people from the LGBT community here in Allentown. If you want to search them up and visit the community, or just speak to the people, they'll be willing to accept you in. If you're somebody who's struggling with your sexual identity or with anything in general when it comes to that kind of within yourself, they're more to help you to help. They're a very good community. They have a good guidance, they have good resources, good programs, and just overall good people. So if you want, you can go check them out, click their website, and you'll be brought into there. So enough of that. I decided to just talk about it in general. I got to sit down with 3 to 4 people, maybe more, on just to interview them and just to ask them about gender identification, what they think about it. What do they think about the fact that they have to put a female or male? And well, these people had a lot to say, and that is respectful. One of them starting off at the fact that they had to deal with it in firsthand, like in public. So I'm going to be talking about they, them. They decided to remain anonymous due to the fact of personal and just personal things, personal issues. They don't want to be named, which is okay. So this is their story. One time, they decided to go out and just like vote. When they were voting, in the pamphlet there was, the list of people that you needed to vote for and la-di-da-di-da. After being done with the ballot, they were shown to where they were supposed to be and where to drop off their ballot. They were asked to show their ID, and in their ID, you may guess it, ding ding ding, there was their gender identification. What was their gender identification? Well, it said female. In the ballot, they didn't put a gender. So the lady who was in charge of the ballot, taking the forms and taking the identifications and everything like that, asked the person, hey, you forgot to put your gender identification. So they looked at the lady and was like, you guys don't have one. You guys don't have what I identify as, so I decided not to put it. And then the lady goes, well, in your ID, it states that you're a female. So they had to take the time, maybe like an hour or two, to explain to the lady who they are, what they identify as, and the reasoning as to why they didn't put a gender identification in their ballot. They explained to me at the fact that it made it like such a frustrated situation. It made it difficult for them to even talk about it in general. If they felt embarrassed at the fact that they had to talk about it, and just an overall fact that they just have to just stand there and just explain who they are. As I got to sit down with them, they told me that why don't they have a box where I can just mark what I am? If there's female and male, why can't they put non-binary or transgender or any sexuality out there? Like, it's frustrating to know that I have to put a female or male, and I don't want to, and I'm not going to, because that's not what I identify as. Quote end. And as they were talking about it, I felt their pain, their anger, because as somebody who identifies as non-binary, it's difficult for me to try and like put myself and just say, hey, I'm a female, because that's what I was assigned at birth. But I don't really identify as a female nor a male. I just identify somebody as me, as somebody who's they, them, as a general overall, like. So I felt their frustration and the fact that they had to just stand there and just say, hey, no, I'm not a female or not a male. I just, I'm not that. So in reality, it just made it difficult for this person to just talk in general about everything, who they are and who they truly were in the outside and in the inside. They did spoke out and so many thoughts about it, but one thing they said is like, if I have to go and vote, right, and there's a ballot and there's so many precedents, so many people to choose from, why can't they do that with gender identification? Why can't I just go and just sign a box, check it out, and say, hey, no, I'm non-binary, not a female, not a male, I'm just non-binary. I totally agree with them in the fact that they have to, like, that, that's like an idea that they can put out there. People from the government can take that and say, hey, why don't we just, bring this up and talk about it and just modify it for the people who are struggling with their gender identification. Like, if somebody identifies as non-binary, gender neutral, gender queer, or transgender, they can add it in those boxes as gender identification and make it easier for them to just deal with it, not having to just not check a box and having to explain to somebody why they didn't check a box. You know what I mean? Like, that, does that make any sense? To me, it doesn't. I feel like that's just straight up, like, annoying. To me, that's just something that just doesn't make sense to me. As somebody who has a higher power should listen to the people and say, hey, we're lacking in this. Like, we need to recognize everybody as equals, because, that's what we all are. We're equals. We're all humans. We all have the same feelings and the same things that we share about certain things. And, they should be able to, at least accommodate us on that part. So I understood this person's, overall feeling and why they were so angry at the fact that they had to take 2 hours to explain something like that. So yes, it's something that I just sat there and really hit me in the heart, just hearing it in overall. Second person I got to sit down with, somebody who, well, he is he's very proud of who he is, which is amazing. And he is somebody who definitely goes out there and protests every day. Quoting, I go out there every day to protest for human rights, especially also my rights as a human being. Gender identification is something that I also fight for and I also protest for. It's something that needs to be noticed, something that needs to be modified at least, or maybe banned. Who knows? But it needs to be accommodated and listened to. End quote. The fact that he really just said that really moved me, because, as somebody who has been in protest, as somebody who has just been there and has seen it overall, about people just fighting for their rights, about people just fighting for overall, abortion, about LGBTQ rights, about Black Lives Matters, about everything in general. And, I've seen these people's emotions just get the best of them. I've seen people with their anger, their pain, their sufferingness, their pain, like, just overall all of their feelings just being put out there, but in the most angriest way possible. He really said that he wishes that he wouldn't go out there and protest every day, because it gets tiring. And I agree with him on that part, because there's people out there that don't understand that protesting takes a lot within you, knowing that you have to go out there every day, fight for your rights as a human, as somebody who, wants things to change, wants something better, and that's understandable. But with protesting, there's good things and bad things about protesting. Good things, sometimes it ends up working. There's always some kind of justification. There's always some kind of, hope. But there's also the bad ones. We don't get recognized. People don't listen to us. People ignore us and say, that's just not it anymore. Like, you protesting about something like this is just not gonna help. Like, no. And it takes people, it takes people. It puts them in like a toll, and it breaks them down, and it makes them feel, like they're nothing and they're worth nothing to anybody. And that's one of the things that people don't understand about protesting. It takes a lot within you. me, as somebody who sat through this conversation and listened to him talking about the protests and about the fact that they also had to go out there and fight for something as gender identification, because he wants something like that for a lot of people. He wants to be heard just like all of them. He wants everybody to have a say in everything, and also just have an overall, you know, good self-worth. And just hearing him talk about all this protesting and how it leads to everything bad, and sometimes it leads to good things, sometimes it just leads to us just wanting to cry in our car or in our homes and just say, I did all my best and still nothing. That's how I felt. And I understand in his part that it is tiring, that it is exhausting. He did say one thing. If the Supreme Court were like, hey, if I stopped being this selfish and I stopped putting my beliefs first and start putting other beliefs first, like humans' beliefs, then everything will be better and nobody will be protesting, end quote. That is actually true, because one of the things that the government does is that when you have such a higher power, right, when you're up in those power towers, everything you can control. You can do anything. You can take people's rights away. You can modify things. You can take away everything that you want. You can, raise them gas prices. You can raise the grocery prices. You can do so much when you're all the way up here. And, when you're not up there, you barely have, you're like going down in the scale. And that really takes a toll on you. And just hearing him say all these things really hurt me, to the fact that, I am tired too as a human, having to go out there and protest, having to fill out forms, having to call these people and be like, hey, you're taking my rights away. Like, I understand that part. And him just speaking about it and seeing his reaction towards this was really sad, because he has a partner who identifies as non-binary, and they go out a lot, and his partner has to constantly explain that they are not what they are. They're not a female or a male. They are who they are. And just seeing him talk about, his partner, and the way that they have to explain to a lot of people that, hey, those are not my pronouns, that's not who I am, that's not who I identify as, it's tiring. And so he decides to go out every day to protest about it, and to at least get some change, to at least modify it. You don't have to ban the whole thing. You might as well just modify it and just add it in those gender forms, right? Add it into the IDs, add it into the passports, add it into anything that has to do with gender. Anything related to gender, you can add it to. So, just hearing him talk about it really just took a toll on me, because, I also have siblings who are part of the LGBT community. There are also some of them who identify as gender queer, pangender, transgender, oh my god, so many. And I also fight for them, as well as I fight for me and for all those people in the community, because they also have they also have a say in things, and they also need to be accommodated just like any human being out there in this world. So yeah, protesting is very tiring if you're somebody who goes out there and does it a lot, especially now more than ever because of the abortion part, but I got to protest in the gender identification part, because it is something that we need to wake up. It's something that needs to be recognized as well, because there is a lot of people out there who need this. Like, they need the fact that, they need to just fill a form and just say, hey, no, I'm not a female, I'm not a male. I am this, I am that. You know what I mean? It will be a lot better if it was modified and accommodated to these people, especially to me and my siblings as well. Another person that I decided to talk to was somebody who just overall spoke about it. Education. I got to read a book too on gender euphoria, gender identification, by Laura Kate. It talks about a lot of these stories. It's a good book overall. It talks about some of these stories about people in the system, people about, identifying as a lot of things, about their gender euphoria, etc. I came across one of the stories about education and about the part that some of these kids have to be banned due to their sexuality, due to what they identify as. I interviewed one person in the community that had that same experience. They spoke about the fact that they seen people being kicked out because of being transgender, because of being non-binary, because just transitioning in overall. And in this book, there is a part of this that explains a story about somebody who was identifying as non-binary, and they spoke about how they started the transition of becoming a male. And once they done with that transition, they decided to go back to school, and the parents decided to spoke to the people from the school, say, hey, my son is going to school, and we want to make sure that you guys understand the changes and the transition that they went through, and I want you to know what to use to refer to him, and just out of respect. And the story keeps on going, and it talks about how teachers decided not to call this person by their name, by their new name. They decided to call them by their den name. Den name meaning me as Rose, I can change my name to something that would suit me as in my gender, as somebody who I identify as. I could probably go by Alex if I identify as he, them, or anything else like that. A lot of people use that to feel more secure, to feel like, you know, that's who they identify as, somebody different. So they wanted to get that point across in the school system. And the story keeps on going and going, and it talks about how this one teacher was like not wanting to refer to this person as their new name, as their pronouns. They were like, no, you're female and you're this, and this is your name. It really was really bad due to the person, because they felt so awful, and then they had to stop school. They had to stop everything. They stopped going in general due to the fact that this one teacher was not willing to cooperate. And from one teacher, it led to parents. Parents found out about a transgender kid being in the school, and talks about how they had to deal with all the suffering and everything like that. And it's like, your kids are not suffering. Your kids are not in danger due to somebody's transition. It doesn't work like that. But in the story, it makes it like that. It you can hear the pain in this person's, you know, in this person's life, and how they had to deal with such like bad reputation, as like they thought that the person really thought that they were just bad. They thought that they were a bad person for transitioning, for wanting something that will accommodate them, for wanting something that would say, hey, this is me, and I'm proud of who I am, and I just want to put that out there and share it with people, so like that they also respect me. And you know, the teacher was really, really bad. The person never really stopped, you know, agitating the kid, and it really just made it awful. So the story keeps on going and going about it, but I want to talk about education in general, because this person who I interviewed about this spoke to me on how they had dealt with it, as well some other people in the school had dealt with it, with the transition, and how they had to, you know, stop going to school because people will not be respectful about their gender identity. Parents will be always like, I'm pulling my kid out of school because, you know, you're allowing this kind of behavior, and la-di-da-di-da. Or teachers in the school were like, no, you're not referred to that. Your name is actually this. This is your name, and this is who you are, and this is your gender. Let's talk about that. Like, why should that be a problem to people? It's not gonna take away people's education. It's not gonna distract nobody. You're just being respectful. They're who they are for many reasons. We should understand that, you know, as humans. We should understand that as general overall humans. But I guess there's people out there that really don't care for that, and they really just be like, sorry, I ain't gonna do. But you know, it should be something that should be talked about, because these LGBTQIA+ kids have to deal with this kind of thing. There's children out there that belong in the LGBTQ community, you know, legit children, and they had to deal with this constant harassment. Their parents had to deal with their, you know, their depression, their thoughts about dying, and how they are not accepted, and how they feel like them being who they are is wrong, you know. There's been cases out there, like the Florida case about don't say the word gay. we should support our LGBTQIA plus children due to the fact that they also want education, they also want a life, you know, and the life that they want is something that people are so against of, and we should not be like that. It shouldn't be like that. We should talk about human rights and overall. So that's one of the things, you know, it's not harmful to refer yourself as gay or as non-binary, as transgender, or as lesbian, or as, you know, as bisexual, as queer, as just like part of the LGBT. It should not bother anybody. But I guess there's people out there that really just don't like the fact of their kids being near somebody who's from the LGBTQIA plus community. I guess that really just bothers them, and it puts them in a position. So, you know, I got to keep going on and talking to these people and having, you know, the overall experience to do that, because I don't do that as often. I don't talk to a lot of people due to social anxiety. But I did talk to them, and they had so much to say about this, and all of them really just wanted to be accommodated towards them. They want the box where they can check and say, no, I am not female, I am not male, I am non-binary, or I am transgender, or genderqueer, or pangender, third gender, gender neutral. If we have a list of races, and we have a list of presidents and vice presidents, and this, or a list of groceries that we can select to, or this and that, or if we have so many lists, why can't there be a list for identification, for gender identification? Like, why isn't there a list? Why do we have to go out there and protest for some things that you can change as a higher up, that you can change and modify that quickly? What you have to do is, hey, I want this to happen for acceptance for everybody. Let's do it. But I guess nobody really talks about it. Nobody really thinks about people's gender identification or who they identify as. It's just kind of annoying in general. And just seeing these people talk about their feelings about it and how they have to deal with it constantly outside of work, outside of their homes, outside of everywhere they go, you know, they have to literally spend time talking about it and talking about who they are and what they identify as. It's just like not right. It's not right. My parents ask me every day about who I am as a person, and I'm like, I'm your kid. That's all you need to know. And just know that I'm not a she. I'm just they, them. I'm non-binary, and I'm proud of that. I'm a queer non-binary person, and if that's not enough for you, then I don't know what is, you know. I don't like the fact that I have to go out there as well and have to explain to people who I am and what my pronouns are, this and that. You know, I started wearing like a they them pin just so people know, or I started wearing things with people that says like ask about my pronouns, so they'd be a little bit more respectful. Or I bring this mug everywhere I go that says ask about my pronouns, and if they do ask, then I say, hey, I'm they them, what are yours, you know. So just overall, I feel like we should be able to change this. We should be able to accept certain things about people's life. We should be able to add these gender identifications into ballots, into forms. We should be able to put them in our driver's license and just say, hey, I am transgender, I'm non-binary, I'm genderqueer, you know, anything that you identify as. We should be able to add it. It's not that hard. If we can add so many things into so many lists and check so many things, then why can't we just add it to something so delicate, which is gender identification? There's a lot of people out there that struggle with this, and we need to open our minds and our eyes and our ears and say, hey, we're all humans. We all need to fight for everybody's rights, no matter who they are, no matter what they identify as. We need to help them. If we can help each other as females and as males and as anything, then we can help each other as well when it comes to identification. We want to help our children who are part of the LGBT community. You know, kids who suffer with transgender. We have adults, we have teens, we have older adults, you know what I mean? We should be able to help them as well, and we have a voice. We should be able to use it and speak up and say, hey, I'm not okay with this. I am not okay with this. I'm not okay with gender identity being something that is lacking. We want it to be done. We want it to be heard, and we want it to be listened to and changed or modified or banned. Either way will work for me. But yes, my question to you is, will you fight with us? Will you take our sides and say, hey, you know, they're right. Gender identity should matter, just like every situation in this world should matter. You know, that's one of those problems. Why not add it in there? Are you willing to fight with us, or are you willing to sit like every other person and say, hey, no? I don't think that's something that needs to be heard. Because in my case, I feel like it needs to be heard. There's people out there suffering due to this identity fact, due to the fact that they have to just say female or male. We should be able to recognize their struggles and what they have to deal with every day. So yes, that's my overall presentation on gender identity. And yeah.